Welcome to the Nickels and Dimes Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and I look forward each and every week to bringing you amazing content that will provide you with a financial education, will support you on your financial journey, and most importantly, help you to find financial freedom. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Nickels and Dimes Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and today I'm speaking with Jenelle Berry-Cook. Jenelle is the founder of and operator of Texas-based real estate firm, Settled Nomad Real Estate / MCB Capital. She is passionate about helping clients learn how to build generational wealth through real estate. No matter if you're a first-time home buyer or a first-time investor, every client is an investor. With extensive experience in business development and customer experience strategy, Jenelle Berry-Cook works tirelessly to unearth solutions that bring real value to and help advance clients towards outperforming their investment goals. A top-producing realtor in Texas, and in the last year alone, Jenelle's helped clients deploy $80 million of investment capital, sold over $40 million in residential real estate, and she currently is in the process of building a 65-home community within the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Early in her career, Jenelle developed her skills in client management at Pfizer. After earning her MBA, she spent nearly a decade launching and leading global marketing initiatives for major international organizations, including L'Oreal and Estée Lauder, and led large-scale strategic initiatives, including new store openings, retail restructurings, and only at Apple consumer programming across Apple Inc.'s global retail footprint. Jenelle and her husband, Michael, live in North Dallas with their 3 young children. She's actively involved in her community, serving as a board member on both the Plano Education Foundation and Leadership Plano. Jenelle received her MBA from Columbia University and a BA in International Relations from Tufts University. Jenelle, it's so great having you here today. I really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat with me.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I always cringe a little bit when people read my bio because I don't love when people are talking about me. So thank you. Glad I got through that.
You're welcome. I know how that is. It's funny because we have all the credentials we have, right? Every one of us from whatever we've accomplished throughout life. But having that spotlight shined on us a little bit can be like, I don't know. Sometimes I think it feels good to hear everything I've accomplished, but also sometimes I feel like, okay. So
yes.
It can be a little overwhelming to hear it back for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being here today. And I'm going to throw in, I don't know if you've listened to any of my previous episodes, but I like to throw in an icebreaker question. And that is, if you could be any superhero, who would you be and why?
I'm wearing my Black Panther shirt today.
Nice.
And I absolutely love the Black Panther now series, because now there's a part 1 and a part 2. I loved it when it was a comic book, and I love it now even more that it's a movie. The question is why? I think part of the reason why is because why I like Black Panther is that his mission was so it's about building this and keeping this really, really strong community and building that wealth and continuing to keep that wealth within that community, but being a beacon of light for the rest of the world at the same time.
I love it. And I think that fits you perfectly. I always say that when people tell me their answers to that question, it always resonates with exactly who I have come to know them to be. So now, did you listen to an episode? Is that why you're wearing that t-shirt, or is it just by chance?
No. It's just by chance. In fact, my daughter
awesome.
gave me this t-shirt, and I have this, I'm not going to stand up, but I'm wearing this pink skirt, and I was trying to figure out, what can I wear with this? And I was like, t-shirt, that's really it. But thank you. This is perfect.
Yes, it is. I love it. And I also love that movie franchise for sure. It's one of my favorites in the last several years. Absolutely. So It makes sense. All right. So as we're going to dive into what you do, what you created, what your company is all about. For the listeners, Jenelle and I just met a couple of months ago at a open house for a women's community here locally that we're a part of, and just struck up a conversation and realized that we're in the same part of the world as far as personal finance, investing, building a financial legacy. And as we've continued to get to know each other, we've now met one-on-one to talk about some workshops that we can put together that I'm really excited about. So we'll touch on that a little bit more later, but let's jump in first by having you just share a little bit about your own personal finance journey.
Okay. So it's a windy one. So for me, I don't even know if it was, I'll just tell you my journey, I guess, and how finances have become important to me because of it. So I grew up an only child to a single immigrant mom. So I'm a first generation child to this country. My mom didn't know a ton about anything besides her personal bank account, her 401k, because her brother said invest in your 401k, and a susu. And for those of you that don't understand what that is, it is sort of this like um I guess collective pot of capital that a community of people will collect, and then over a specific cadence, whether it be a month or quarter, everyone sort of takes all the money from that pot and it's theirs. And so there's no you know interest accumulation there. There's no wealth building. It's just a bunch of people saving a pot of money and passing it around. So that was the extent of what my mother understood as it related to personal finance. I will say she's gotten savvier over the years in my adulthood, so I'm proud of her for that. And then going to college, I was fortunate because I just did well academically. The only criteria in my mom's house was get good grades. Didn't know what that meant. Didn't know anything about sports or anything else. It was just get good grades. And so that awarded me some financial support at school, but I am still carrying a ton of debt to this day because I made choices to go on to grad school. My husband and I both, he also came from a family that is middle class. They were got two government workers, and they collect a good pension, but ultimately, they took some things on the chin as it relates to building wealth. And so when we started our family with a whole lot of debt and nothing else, right? And
Yeah.
so um, we were highly educated, went out into the world, had really good jobs, and were making really good income, putting money in our 401k. My husband got into the private equity space. And so this thing happened called we started getting these things called K1s, and we didn't really understand what those were. We're still doing our own taxes. We didn't know what they were from a tax burden perspective. And I say that to say that one day he called me on the phone and he said, so our tax bill is $120,000. And I almost had a complete heart attack because at that point we had just bought a home in Texas. I was still living in California and commuting for work. So we were carrying an apartment in California.
Yeah.
And we had three small kids, one of which has some developmental disabilities. And so we have a cost burden as it relates to her. And I thought we were just beginning to sort of accumulate some wealth, and immediately that did not happen. I should also say that that happened probably 1 year or less before COVID hit.
Okay.
And I will not go belabor you with all of the windy road there, because some of that will come out as I talk about us building our business. But we learned really hard um, what that meant, and that we needed to find some tax advice and some financial advice and how we structure our finances to climb our way out of that, and then to begin to really think about how we start to build wealth for our family. And so I hope that wasn't a long story, but that's sort of my journey as to why, sort of one of the reasons why it became really important for me to really understand personal finance and think about how we structure the money that we have coming in so that we can then use it to make money for us rather than continuing to pour it out and staying in the red.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that was a great story and a great journey through that. One of the things that I talk about all the time with every single client I meet with is the fact that we don't get any kind, not just a full and complete, but no kind of formal personal financial education in the school systems in America. And so while we may get those college degrees, while we may start working in corporate America, while we may start earning those six-figure incomes, if we don't completely know what to do with them, we can end up in all types of situations. In my story in the past, I went through about a 3 or 4 year window after 2008 where I I got laid off from my corporate job I thought I'd be at forever. And so I was like, oh, I'll go mid-sized companies. I feel like maybe there's a little more security there. No, a year later, that backlash hit the mid-sized companies. And so then I went to small family-owned companies and the backlash hit there about a year later. So over 3 or 4 years, I went through a layoff and a couple of restructurings at companies. And it really put me behind the eight ball because I didn't have an emergency fund. I knew I should have money saved, but I didn't understand necessarily how or where to exactly build that emergency fund and how to properly utilize it. I was a single mom and I wasn't getting consistent child support. So it seemed like everything was an emergency, right? I just had one bucket of savings. That was my everything savings. And so as, years later, here I am in this industry and I look at it and it's one of the primary places that I emphasize with my clients is number one, let's make sure you have that education and that understanding. And number two, let's start by making sure that we're building towards your emergency fund if you don't already have it. And that's not to say we can't do other things also, but having that priority. And so I think your story is a good evidence of that. You and your husband were both successful, both educated, both very smart individuals, and didn't realize that when you started doing some things that you thought were going to help your family, they actually put you in a tax situation you weren't prepared for. So I think it's important to start there because I do think it plays into your journey in getting more information, but also in building your company and making sure you're structuring everything correctly. So that's another point from that is for a lot of us, especially since 2020, since COVID, so many people started their own businesses, and the importance of sitting down with a tax advisor you truly feel comfortable with to make sure you're setting everything up for your company, your business, the proper way so you don't end up with a tax issue. So let's kind of go ahead and just shift into what led you to starting your business. Where did that kind of come from?
Yeah. So it started twofold. So the first is my husband and I had been talking a lot about if we could, what we would do for ourselves, if we could start our own business. But we had been on this perpetual cycle of, income in, and as our income grew, the way our life was structured also grew, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it sort of became apparent to us that it would be something we did once we finished putting out money for our children. So once they were out of our homes and off of our payroll, right? So that was our big dream.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward a bit, we moved to Texas. So we'd moved from New York to California and then Texas, all for work-related moves. And I had finally moved to Texas. And then lo and behold, his work changed and he was now commuting back and forth to Atlanta. And COVID hit. And so we were now in the middle of a shutdown and looking at each other in the face and saying, okay, so what are we both going to do? Because his company was a startup and they had early on decided, okay, we can't pay you this salary that you're making. And so we're going to quickly make a different choice. And so here he was back in Texas, excuse me. So we sort of at some point had decided to like, let's dust off our business plan. So while we were doing some projects virtually, and I was doing some real estate deals, I'd gotten my license here in Texas because it's hard to be in the state of Texas as a smart person and not see how much real estate transactions are happening. And I thought that was a good like place to park myself. And I was doing all these investor deals. So we dusted off our little business plan and toyed around with it because we had nothing but free time between homeschooling and doing these projects. And we were actually looking at this point, our money was dwindling down. We're paying the tax bill and we have about, I don't know, 3 months worth of our mortgage still sitting in the bank. And we're like, okay, now what to do? So we're like, well, now is a better time than ever, no better time than ever. It's kind of one of those like circumstances are hitting you. So your back's up against the wall and go for it.
Yeah.
So our business, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And so we literally put our pitch deck out there, out into the world, and we started to pitch it out to investors. And I think that, so our business is a real estate investment firm. It started as one small fund in the residential real estate space. I think we got very lucky. So I have my real estate license. I was doing investment deals on the ground. My husband has, and my business partner has worked in investment banking and private equity, specifically in real estate for some years. And so he comes with that brain, that side of the brain and that expertise. And so we put that together and then we started pitching. I think we had a captive audience because lots of people were meeting via Zoom and available. We also had a product that institutional investors at the high net worth, but not quite the BlackRocks of the world, but these family offices and other high net worth individuals were looking to invest in, but they didn't know how at the time and they didn't want to be the operator of it. So here we came with an opportunity. There was capital, excuse me, there's some movement happening. There was capital in the market looking to get out of, from a real estate perspective, looking to get out of the office space and the multifamily space. And if you could think back to that time, what was happening was people weren't going into the office.
Right.
So commercial office space wasn't doing well as an asset class. And then multifamily, lots of people didn't even want to press the buttons on their elevators because we were being told that like anything would give you COVID. So nobody wanted to be around anyone. So you had more people looking to be in their own space with their own yard. And if you had to bunker down somewhere, it would be great to have a backyard. And so we came with this thesis and this investment opportunity to the market at the right time. So that is why and how we started our business. We actually got to start our business. We raised our money in 3 months. We thought we went to market to raise $20 million. We thought we would raise about 5 in the first year to be able to deploy. We actually raised all 20 within 3 months.
Wow.
And then it actually took more time for the legal ink to dry than it did for us to actually raise the money. So within 5 months, we were on the ground and operating.
That's amazing. So one thing, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you say that, and what I'm hearing is, especially when you said, you came to market at the right time, but you didn't come to market necessarily at the right time because of years of planning and prep and organizing this, putting it in a pretty box with a pretty bow on it. You had a sense of urgency in your personal life that pushed you forward to step into creating your own company. And then the world became a shit show, right? At the same time, but in a way that lended towards what you guys were going to create with your company. And so I say that to say, for everybody out there, there are so many times in our life when we feel like we fall flat on our face, or we run right into the brick wall and the world is crumbling around us. But what I've found over the years, and what it sounds like in this situation with you, is almost like all of those things that seem like they were falling apart and were going to be maybe the demise of all your plans and your personal finances often set us up for some of the biggest opportunities. And then behind that, the biggest blessings that come into our lives. Right. So,
absolutely.
I would not be in the business I'm in today, doing what I do, helping people every single day, if my entire world hadn't blown up in my personal life about, gosh, it's going on 6 years now. So a little over 5.5 years ago, my personal life blew up. And within 3 months, I was working as a contractor and I was supposed to have a little over a year left on my contract. And they notified me with about 30 days notice that at the end of 2018 they were terminating my contract. So here I was like, oh, okay. And honestly, I learned a couple things through being a contractor in corporate America. I always was like the dazzle of, well, you can make more money. But what I realized was I got to carry all my own benefits. So that extra money I was making was going towards to providing my own benefits. And so I'd already made the decision, like once this project's over, my contract's done, I'm going to move back into corporate America as from an employee perspective. But that was supposed to be about 15 months away. And all of a sudden, it was 30 days away. So my personal life blows up. My professional life blows up. I'm back in the job market. And as I started joining groups within social media to meet more people and to look for more networking opportunities, because it seemed like that was really a big time frame in 2018 and going into 2019, where a lot of people were coming together in groups to network and grow as individuals, grow their businesses, and look for opportunities to connect for that next job. So I really plugged into that and came across the business opportunity I have. And I know for a fact that if I was still in the relationship I was in, I would not be doing what I do today. And I'm incredibly blessed in a million ways for things that have happened over the last 5.5 years on this journey. And so it's just interesting to hear a lot of times when you break down people's stories about where they are, right? Like I admire what you do. I love what you bring to the table. I'm excited about the opportunities that how our worlds connect in ways that we can share that and provide maybe even more opportunity for women in our community specifically. But just the fact when you hear those stories, you realize that coming to where you are, finding that purpose and that passion in life is often because something else exploded somewhere.
Yeah.
We all want to think we planned for it, but that's not really how it happens when you really get down and hear people's stories. So that's kind of why I wanted to go through some of that. So for anybody out there listening who feels like right now there's a lot of turmoil out there, people are losing jobs. People are like, do I start my own thing? Do I spend however long it takes finding the next job? Whatever that looks like. Sometimes things falling apart are the catalyst for things coming together better than you could have ever imagined. So, and just from our conversations, I feel like that's what it's built so far and continuing to build for your company, for you and your husband and your family. Okay. So we know what led you into starting your business. Talk to me a little bit about what's your mission? What's the problem that you wanted to solve through creating your company?
Yeah. So originally, when we went to market with our fund to build the first fund, we said, okay, we have made a lot of money for a lot of people in the past, and we haven't always seen, we get bonuses, we get things, but we see how much money is being made out there. This is something we could do for ourselves. In addition to that, there's so many people that are like us, right? So there are people that are high earners, but they're not necessarily the highest savers or investors. One, because they don't, they're in a sort of a sandwich, that part of their life where they are taking care of, thinking about and taking care of people that are their relatives, parents, etc., or getting ready to make heavy decisions about that. And they're also starting to think about what they're doing with their kids. Do I put my child in private school? Am I in the best school district? Am I on all the on the travel teams, all of the things, this,
Yeah.
as a mom. And so, you think you're coming in with a lot, but what of that are you taking and making work for you. So you think about your retirement. In addition to that, there's the lack of opportunity or visibility to those opportunities. And so like, if you don't play in the spaces of high net worth people, you aren't having those conversations and being introduced to those opportunities to invest in those funds. And then also the barriers to entry often includes the entry fee. And so a lot of times for private equity investments, you need, even to be at the quote friends and family level, minimum investments are often $100,000. So we said, okay, let's find our biggest capital, right, to come to the table that will believe in our fund and use that leverage, right, to go to market. And then on our friends and family, which we call our everyday people fund, we want to be able to bring everyday investors to the table. And so what I'm really proud, because 80% of those investors that we have that we were able to bring to the table are women. And I think we're really close to, I think 75% at this point are people of color, which are also oftentimes excluded from those investment tables as well. And so that was the impetus, really. So we said, okay, we know we want to be able to build this and do it for ourselves for all the reasons I explained before, but we also want to be able to help people get opportunities, help people that don't traditionally have these investment opportunities get a seat at the table. So our payout, our metrics, and when we met with our initial capital investor that decided that they believed in us, one thing that we had as a guarantee was we said, every investor that we bring to the table, it doesn't matter how small the investment, and our minimum threshold, we made it 25,000. We wanted to make sure that the metrics for payout were the same. So if the return is a 17% IRR and the dividend is 9%, then everybody gets that based on their investment. So, and we don't want to nickel and dime any of our investors. So all of the metrics and the fees, et cetera, are the exact same from the highest investor to the lowest investor, with the exception being that our capital partner has a lot more say in transaction by transaction. So because you can imagine that hundreds of investors and everyone having a say on every single transaction.
Yeah.
Really, right. And so that was really important. Excuse me, family stuff happening at this moment.
You're good.
That was very, very important to us. And then the next thing, as our business grew, we said, okay, so we now have our business, the way that it operates today, we're able to manage this full $50 million investment. So we do the asset management, but we also are fully vertically integrated. So we own our own brokerage. We own our own, we manage all of the third-party construction. So we do construction management in-house. For our larger funds, we manage all the property management, and then all of the reporting, et cetera. So because we have that capability, we said, okay, I want to build a brokerage that allows individual people to come and be investors. And so that's why I say every single person purchasing a house with me or someone on my team as an advisor is an investor. We really do believe that we're going to train everyone that this is not just about how this home feels for your family. It's not just that warm and fuzzy. We want you to treat this like it is because it likely is the most expensive thing that you're ever going to purchase. And how do you not only understand the equity year over year, but what are the opportunities for you to then use that equity and then leverage that to turn your first home into your first portfolio of homes, so that you are really building out an investment opportunity to not only gain passive income for yourself, but to also build that generational wealth for you into build that wealth for your retirement and for your generations to come.
Yes.
And so those are the reasons. So it was first, like I said, for looking at people that were just like us in that, high earners, but wanted more opportunities to invest. But then also just for people that are buying their homes, like, let's teach everyone that part of your investment portfolio could and should include real estate, and how do you do that even with your first home?
Yeah, I love that because I think, one of the conversations that I have in my world, I get into the nitty gritty with people. I'm looking at every penny they have coming in and every penny they have going out. I'm making sure that they can, afford to live. And then beyond that, start saving. And then beyond that, start doing some of the bigger and part of that savings is sometimes accounts that can grow their money for them long term and set themselves up. But as people build wealth, they want to look for more opportunities, more places to put their money. And in those conversations, the one thing I say is a mortgage is the healthiest debt you will ever have. Right. Yes, there have been times that the real estate industry has taken hits along the way, but a mortgage long term holding on to a property, it appreciates for you. So while you go into debt to purchase them just because of the amount that they cost, it's still your money working for you long term. And also looking at the ways you can leverage that asset that you now have. Having a home is an asset even when you have a mortgage on it. And so leveraging the equity, things like that in that asset to help you continue to build wealth. And I'm not an expert in that, in shifting into that side of things, but I pride myself in creating relationships with people who are like yourself. For the listeners, I had an episode previously, it was episode number 7 with Tim Parnell, where we talked about, is now the right time to buy or sell real estate? A very general conversation. And we actually, in that conversation, go into several different areas outside the traditional investing that even we went beyond real estate, even to things like crypto and things like that. But I think that as people start to step into that world and build wealth, they're looking for all those different kind of opportunities. And where's the next best place to go? Right. I have my foundational investments in place to provide for my retirement things. Now I want to build wealth and create a legacy, which is a whole other level. And that's what you're talking about. And a couple of things you touched on, I was trying to take scribble notes while I was looking at you talking. But one of the things you said that I think is so important is you're trying to make the ability to invest in real estate affordable for the average middle income American. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then,
So
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So what I was going to say by that is, I hope the people listening to this episode connect with that. And here's why. The number one reason that people don't go sit with somebody when they become an adult and they realize maybe there's little things that happen. I get into a little debt and I have to crawl out of that hole. I have student loans, or, I'd like to get a Roth, or there's the little things like that will pop up as we get older. We start working, we're investing, in our 401ks and things. And so I'll meet with clients who will tell me, I never went to talk to anybody because, number one, I didn't think I could afford what it would cost to sit down with them. And number two, I don't have $250,000 to $500,000, and even in some specialty boutique firms, $1 million to put somewhere. And so they probably won't pay any attention to me. And that's why I am passionate about, it's one of the big reasons I started this podcast, is because I can only talk to so many people as one individual. How do I get my voice and how do I get this information out there to the masses? And it's to let people know there are ways you can get this information for free. Now, it doesn't mean you can invest for free. You've got to have money to put somewhere, but to get the information, and in doing so, realize the ability to invest in all different areas is possible without having, $100,000, $250,000, $1 million sitting around waiting to put somewhere. And that's what you're creating in the real estate world that I love. It's the perfect add-on for my clients to build towards. It's the perfect add-on for me. We had this conversation when we met last week about how one of the things I have on my 3 to 5 years goals is to start stepping into real estate investing. And so listen, there's a lot of things you say, acronyms and things in your world that do not click in my head, but I'm building a relationship with somebody and creating trust and camaraderie with you to where when I'm ready to take those steps, I know where I can go. And that's the other thing I hope to do by bringing professionals like yourself in to talk about your individual place in the process, so that people can get to know some of the people that are out there that are creating this. And so you've now created the ability for somebody with, at the minimum level, $25,000 to start putting that into real estate investing and building wealth, building on that to where they can continue to do more and more of it, correct?
Yes, and that's just a fun business, right? So like I also have clients that are, first-time home buyers, and they can leverage a first-time home buyer access to for first-time home buyer funding so that they're looking at their home. But we're not just going to stop there. We're going to think about, okay, so this is your first home. Like, let's have an annual equity overview and let's talk about what do you want long term? When do you want to retire? What is your family structure and what do you want for them? And how can we use this one asset to build upon that? I also have people so there are women, and one of the reasons I love building this relationship with you is because we're both passionate about making sure that women understand how to build financial wealth so they don't end up in circumstances that, you and I have shared before, right? And
Yeah.
so, I think Bank of America was it that did a study that said 94% of women really do believe that they are going to be responsible for themselves financially and someone else financially. You know what? As far as I'm concerned, that's a good belief to have one way or another, because then if you know how to action it, but only 28% of women feel empowered to actually do something about that, to actually build on that from a financial perspective. And so I love the conversations that we're having about this stuff and how we can help people better understand that. And I like being able to say, well, real estate is just one of those things, and it doesn't necessarily take a lot. So if you are a caretaker, for example, be a caretaker of your elderly parent, or in my case, like me, for example, I'm thinking about my daughter that, everyone's going to need a place to live. I have all this money sitting in a 529 account for her because it started when she was an infant. She may not go to college, right? And we can either decide to pass that down to another child. But what we could do, and what I know now, is that money could go towards like investing in real estate for her, not just because she can have a portfolio, but because she's gonna have to live somewhere. Every single person, whether they go to college or not, will need somewhere to live. And so investing in real estate is a good idea. But what people don't know, another thing you don't know, is there's something called a family opportunity mortgage. Whether it's your elderly parent or your disabled child, you can actually buy that home using that sort of vehicle as if it were a primary residence. And then now it becomes a part of your investment portfolio if you do it the right way. If you put it into the right trust, et cetera, becomes a part of your family's investment portfolio, right? And now at a much lower cost, because you're now using the same down payment as a first-time home buyer, so 5% or less, and you're getting the interest rate of someone that is a first-time home buyer. And you don't have to be a primary resident at all. And there's no limit on the distance where that home is. So your parents could live in a completely different town. Your child could live in a completely different town. We still have access to those, to that interest rate and to that investment, that down payment amount. Simple things like that I want to be able to bring to people and help them be better as more astute investors of real estate.
Yeah. I think the education part of it is just so important. I didn't know things like that existed. I'm a caretaker for my elderly parents who live with me. And we sold their home to bring them here. They weren't in a position to live fully independent anymore. But to understand the different resources that are available, the different programs that are available, like if you never step through the door to have the conversation, you never find out the programs that are available. And that's the thing I love about the company, your company that you've created and the work you're doing is you're trying to make sure people know that there is a door they can walk through. And it doesn't mean it will work for everybody right now, but it's something you can find out the information about and put yourself in a position to utilize it in the future. And that's the same with my tools. Every client I sit down with is not a slam dunk. They're ready to put everything in place right now today to set themselves up for retirement and leave a financial legacy to their families. but you put building blocks in place and they take one step at a time moving towards that. And before they know it, they've created an environment of financial independence and then true financial freedom, which is
Yeah.
the legacy part where you can pass that on for generations and generations. So I love that. I love that. So we talked a little bit about the services you offer your clients. Is there anything else in that category you want to share?
So just to round it out, so we provide obviously agency for whether you're buying or selling. We can provide you the right level of agency, particularly in the Texas area. If you whether it's a full service or not, I want to make sure that I'm starting out with education and I'm providing you the right tools. Always, that's where I start. But also, we have the investment arm of our business. So I have plenty of clients that sit in other states. So I have clients in California, and New York. I mentioned those states because they are states where it's harder to be a residential real estate investor for cost reasons, as well as because of the laws that make it a little bit more difficult, where if unfortunately there comes a time where you have a tenant landlord dispute, sometimes it can be a lot harder in some of those states. So they choose to allocate some of their money in the state of Texas. And so I don't want this to be just for people that are super savvy and have lots of flush cash, but also people that are what I call everyday people that are looking to invest, but they may not be choosing to move to a state like Texas. There's an opportunity to become an investor. And so we have a platform and we're able to execute most of the things that you need in place, including the education. And where I don't have some of the tools that you need or some of the services that you need, I have partnerships. So for example, if you're investing with me and you have a portfolio of less than 10 homes, our service is not a lot is not I'm not at this point capable of providing property management services, but I have a bucket of providers and service providers that I can partner a client with. And so I am a full service suite of investment opportunities, everything from the house you want to live in, if you're going to be here in the state of Texas, to those investment opportunities. And then oftentimes we roll out funds. So we created these, then we roll the funds to market. And if you don't want to own a house, you don't want to be a landlord, you don't want to manage, you can just decide to opt in and invest in those funds as well. Lastly, for me, like I said in the beginning, it's education. So even if you aren't quite ready to make the leap and to purchase, what I'm able to do is I provide the knowledge of all things real estate. You want to know the best time to sell your home? I'm happy to help you with that. You want to build the right investment portfolio, but you aren't necessarily ready to buy. I have training options to be able to provide clients to help them really understand what does that look like? What are the metrics that you should be thinking about so that you can be really savvy in building that portfolio? One of the things that I want to roll out over the next 18 months is some things that are focused on kids, really understanding what it looks like to be a real estate investor. And part of the reason for that is because we often take our kids along for the ride with us. And so my kids they're on the job site often. My 8-year-old son is probably one of the best foundation inspectors that I know at this point. And so it's really important for us, whether they choose to be in this business or not, to have an understanding of entrepreneurship, but also be financially savvy. And for us, what we can bring to them is an education around real estate investing. And so we want to be able to package that, provide that, and have it there for other parents or caretakers of children that might want to provide that education as well.
I love it. I love it. And you said in your stats a few minutes ago, too, 80% of the women that came into your program, or 80% of the investors were women. And then 70% of those were people of color. And one of the things that I always talk about is when we look at financial statistics, the gender wage gap, so many things when you look at financial statistics, women rate significantly lower than men. And
Mhm.
then women of color, Latinas and Black women fall at a whole other level below that within those statistics. And so I love that your program is showing evidence of serving those communities because it's necessary. And the classes that we're talking about doing are going to be around, it's going to be a financial empowerment
Yeah.
series where, we're talking about money mindset and that money is a tool that you can use, that you drive your money. Your money should not drive you. Saving and investing, retirement planning and building wealth, legacy planning. How do you create a legacy through everything that you do? And then how do you pass that legacy on? So excuse me, we're going to touch on a lot of those topics with the courses that we're working together to put in place. And I'm excited about that because, when we were talking the other day, I mentioned that my dad taught me how to do a lot of things when it comes to cars when I was a kid. Back when you could change your own oil and your own alternator and all those kind of things. And now it's harder to get to those areas in your cars. But back in the day, my dad would have me help him bleed the brakes. He would have me help him change the oil. And he always said to me, I want you to have a man in your life. I want you to have a loving relationship, but I don't want you to need one. And just the other day, I presented a workshop on alignable. And I talked about this too. There were some men in the group that came and I said, my presentation is geared towards women or references women a lot in it because it's important to me that women establish a financial education. It's not about, hey, women, you should run on your own. It's
Yeah.
about you should be educated so you can be the best partner possible. I have a lot of female friends who actually manage the finances in their homes. I have a lot that don't, and they don't know a lot about it. And so for me, it's about giving the education to understand what should be happening, how it all works, so that you can come to the table and have a seat at the table in your own home,
Mhm.
and understand the conversations about with your spouse or your partner about what's important to both of you when it comes to building and passing on a financial legacy. And so I love that your focus is so much on empowering women in real estate investing and the opportunities that can open up for them. Um, so I want to ask, what are some of the most important things you've learned over the last 4.5 years? What are good, bad, and different? I don't know how to say that, but what are some of the things that you've run into or that you've learned along the way?
Oh goodness. And so I don't know. I feel like I need like 5 seconds to think about it. So many things. Um, the importance of being super nimble has been
Mm,
things, and so going back to I thought I was going to work for Fortune 500 companies my entire career, and one day I was going to be the president of one of the organizations in one of these companies, and that is not the path that I took. When I guess the I call this shit hit the fan in
mm-hmm.
high school, we were able, because we were nimble, and I'd say that, and scrappy. We said, okay, well, let's just try this, right? And so luckily, we had a couple months of mortgage, and um that's not everyone's position, right?
Yeah.
But we were fortunate enough to be able to do that. But we could have just decided to continue to throw resumes into the LinkedIn ether, right? And not try something. And we did, and it actually paid off. And so that's what I mean. The other thing is the importance of, and you and I talk about this all the time, the importance of, while I have a partner today, bless his heart, that we make financial decisions together. The what I'm seeing more and more, and you said that stat, right? And the more I meet more and more women, a lot of my clients are either oddly enough, the breadwinner in the family, but they're also the caretaker in the family, or the
Mhm.
solo breadwinner and caretaker in their family. So the stats that you mentioned that we talked about earlier talked about, um, that uh that it's women that are 28% of them don't feel empowered
Yeah.
to action their financial, like, future. But at layer onto that plus the wage gap and
Mhm.
the economic gap, the racial wealth gap, right? Layer onto the fact that women are 65% of caretakers are women. And so, like you said, it's not that men are not important in the conversation, but it's so important that we lean into making sure that women are provided the tools and and feel empowered to understand their finances and build upon those. And so those are that to me is one of the most important things I've come to learn in this business.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, it's just so important, like I said, to be able to come to the table as a, as a good partner if you are one, but
Mhm.
to feel confident in being able to create and provide that for yourself and your family if you don't have a partner. And the other thing we haven't talked about yet is, yeah, while you have a partner today, or the listeners may have a partner today, God forbid something happen and they're gone. God forbid something happen and you're gone. And so it's so important for both people to understand. Well, let me start with this. It's so important for both people to be on the same page in the direction that you're moving. And as you make those moves and you take those steps and you build wealth, that you both understand where the money is and what
Mhm.
it's creating and why. Because should the day come that one of you is gone, if that person was the one that managed it all, that handled it all, that knew where everything was, and the other one didn't, I've run into some of those nightmares in helping clients navigate through that just because they didn't even know where to start. They were just the complete overwhelm when you're in the midst of trying to grieve an enormous loss. And so it's just so important that we as women understand, and that our male counterparts do as well. If we are the ones that are managing the finances and the families, we need to open that door for our male partners, our spouses, whatever that looks like for you, to come to the table as well and make sure that they understand. Now, some people are just not wired for that and their eyes glass over. There are ways to summarize it, and just explain, here are the categories we're in. Here's where all the documents are. Like that alone can make a huge difference if you're going through the loss of a loved one and you've got to step in and get your arms around all the finances. So I appreciate you touching on that. So as we wind this down, I want to ask you, what is the impact that you most hope to make through your work? And I think we've touched on it a little bit, but I want to give you just a couple minutes to circle back if there's anything else you want to add. What's the biggest impact you most hope to make through your work? And what legacy do you, Jenelle, most want to leave?
Ooh. Um, so the most impact that I want to make, I want to say is like really, really tackling the so racial wealth gap, super important. As much as I can be, um, or yeah, as much as I can affect that and provide opportunities and seats at the table, that is what I want to be known to having been done. I want and as a legacy, like um, maybe I don't think big enough, but for me, it's really being able to like make sure that we're really thinking about generational wealth in my household. I think that this is not something that my parents or even my husband's parents are really, really, and they fortunate, like we were educated, we were able to position ourselves to be able to really think about that. So I'm not saying, it wasn't because they weren't thinking about all of the day-to-day things, like how do you get this kid fed and taken care of. So it's not me playing the blame game at all, but I want to be able to build upon the roads that were paved for me. So I want to be able to say, just like I do for my clients, I want to be able to leave a legacy for the people that I've decided to bring on this earth. And if I can do that
Mm.
well and have them have something to build upon, then I've done my job. And so, and then if I can impart that upon my clients and help them do that as well, then I have like won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. For the listeners out there, wherever you may be in your financial journey, if you're looking for information on budgeting and really getting your arms around things, go back and listen to episode 5. It's a solo episode where I really talk about the components of budgeting. That's the foundation for starting anything, is knowing where your money's at. You can't build anything if you don't know what you have. And even in episode 2, we talk a lot about the importance of women understanding finances, like we've done here today. So there's a lot of resources that I try to put out there. I'll continue to try to put out there along the way when it comes to talking about finances for women and for everyone, but especially for women. Jenelle, how can people find you? How can they find you? How can they connect with you if they have additional questions or want more information?
Sure. I am, excuse me, most of the time on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. And my handle is just Jenelle Berry, just because I've never changed it. And then my LinkedIn link should also be in your show notes, I believe.
Yes.
I am on Instagram. Our business Instagram is the Settled Nomad Life. And it's really just me trying to drop some nuggets of wisdom, but also giving you a peek into the craziness that is 2 people trying to build a business and manage 3 small humans at the same time. And so those are the 2 main places. My email address is Jenelle, Jenelle at mcbcap.com. And that's just for MCB Capital, which is the main organization for our fund. So Jenelle at mcbcap.com. Those are the main places that you can reach me today. And I'm happy to answer any questions and provide you any tools that you might need to start your understanding of a real estate investment journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of those the links and her email address will be in the show notes for sure for you to reference. And of course, there's always the contact me through the podcast itself. You can send a message to me directly and I can definitely get you in touch with Jenelle one-on-one. So before we completely close it out, is there anything else you want to share as we close out the episode today?
I'm just really excited to get to work and really bring some of these, bring our I think it's a 5-part course out to people, just talking about holistically about investing. And so that's how I'd like to end it. You can talk more about it if you'd like, but that's what I'm most excited about in this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I touched on 3 or 4 of the classes that we're working on putting together. I'm extremely excited about that too. So we have a local community here called the Girl Cave that Jenelle and I are both a part of, and we're going to be doing live workshops in that space. So you can always follow my social media or hers once we have those ready to go and we have launch dates. We'll both have them in our social media everywhere, and I'll probably plug them in the future on a show for opportunities to look for additional educational resources that we offer. And maybe even we'll have to take it virtual to reach more people outside of our local community too. So I'm looking forward to that. We are just starting the framework of that, but I think now that we kind of have the framework for what we want, those classes are going to come together pretty quickly. So I think in the next couple months, we'll be getting some things out there, some information and tools in addition to what we already have that can help people that are listening today. So Jenelle, thank you again for being here and sharing your expertise. It's always great. It's great building relationships with somebody like you, but also having you spend the time to pour into my community. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure just being in community with you. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining me today on the Nickels and Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and I look forward to continuing to bring you amazing content each and every week that will educate you, support you, and help you to find financial freedom. Until next week, stay safe.